I'm kind of intrigued because of your position with Bar Down and TSN. You've obviously been a big Jets fan in your life. What's kind of been the experience and just kind of the perspective as, like, obviously you're a fan, but you've been able to, I mean, interact with your childhood idol in Solani, or like be able to interact with guys like Shifley and just the players in the Jets or the players throughout the league. Obviously at the All-Star game as well. Like, experiences like that, like how has that been, and just to be able to kind of go through that behind the scenes?
Man, it's been wicked.
No, I bet.
I consider myself very lucky. First and foremost, I consider myself lucky to work with great people. I've got some great coworkers who, it's like you get to do all these cool things, but it wouldn't be possible without the people you work with. Like, anytime that I make a video, I'm not just making the video by myself. I have so many people helping me, and often, so many creative minds on the team who are thinking of a lot of the ideas for videos that I'm in, that other people are in. We have a really cohesive team at Bar Down, and I'm really lucky to have all those people in my life. So that's very cool. And obviously just getting to meet all these athletes has been a dream come true. I consider myself very fortunate, very lucky to be in the position I'm in, just the way things worked out for me. That said, I am a hard worker. I believe that I've earned a lot of my opportunity, and that's just what you have to do in this industry. You got, you're learning that you got to say yes to everything, and you got to just put your head down and work weekends. I remember I was in Ryerson and I was working Olympic shifts overnight while I was going to school, and it was exhausting. It was crazy exhausting. But if you just, make all the sacrifices, and then you'll get to where you want to be. So it's been great. And I hope to meet more and more athletes throughout the coming years.
Yeah. No, I think that's the biggest thing. And I've continued to learn is just like, you can't take anything for granted, and just, you got to keep putting in the work. So, no, I definitely know, like, a lot of people, and including myself, it's been really inspiring to see your journey and just how you've grown and just what you've been able to do so far.
Thanks, bro. Not bad for a squid, eh?
Yeah, not bad for Master Squid. I love it. So looking at, let's look at the whole league, but we're both here in Canada. Is there one or two teams you could see that are built here, or just needs like one or two more steps just to get that, I would say, cup contender tag?
The Canucks, for sure. I have really enjoyed watching the Canucks. Really, for the past 2 years, I've liked watching the Canucks. I love Petey. I think he's great.
Yeah.
I think Quinn Hughes is a tremendous player. He just moves so smoothly on the back end, and he's got a good shot. He's smart. And I just love all those guys. I love JT Miller. I know Brock Besser's had a bit of a rough go in the playoffs, but I think he's awesome, and he just seems like a huge beauty too. Bo Horvat's been fantastic. I think Chris Tanev is a very underrated defenseman. They've got some really good pieces in Vancouver, and obviously they've got a good goalie that they're going to have to give a nice contract to. But yeah, I think Vancouver's there, and obviously the Oilers are for sure. It's actually crazy to even think that the Oilers are still a couple pieces away. Like, weren't we supposed to be saying this in like 2012 that they're like a couple pieces away?
Yeah, that team is just I've looked at that team for so long, and I actually, when people ask me, oh, is there a second team that you like maybe cheer for? Like, I used to watch like Oilers hockey like a lot when I was younger. Like Sam Gagner, like Horkoff, Hemsky, like Smith, like
Fernando Pisani,
the whole 9 yards, right? So I just look at that team and it's like, man, like how was it even possible? Like, it started all the way back in like 2008, this whole rebuild, 2009, and then Taylor Hall, and then or Nugent Hopkins. Like, man, it was just, and then obviously the Yakupov thing happened, and it seems like they just, I don't know, it's been a tough road. But no, you're totally right. I feel like they have a lot of pieces.
Like, yeah, even with Edmonton, man, like, I watched that series pretty closely because I took a lot of Hawks in my fantasy pool. As much as I want to say they're a few pieces away, you still get the feeling that they're actually quite a few pieces away. The only reason why they might need only a few more pieces is because they have two of the best players in the world. But it's really not – they're not a very deep roster. So
no, they're not.
They've got some work to do still over there. But when you have McDavid and Draisaitl, anything is really possible. And they're going to have to get good goaltending in the next couple of years because you're not going to get anywhere if you're not getting the right play between the pipes.
The one piece is the goaltender for sure. I think I'm a little more confident just in terms of like they do have a couple of defensemen coming up. Like Broberg seemed like such a reach, and now he actually seems like he could be kind of gross. We'll see what Bouchard does, but no, you're totally right. I mean, the guys that were supposed to step up in terms of their depth just didn't. They acquired Athanasiou. What did he do? Cassian, it seemed like, was supposed to be this big agitator in the playoffs, play a Tom Wilson style. Like, where was he? Like, it just seemed like there was a couple players that kind of disappeared. The captain going back to the Pens was like, when do we see a trade like of that magnitude, like in the middle of the playoffs? Like, never. So do you see this being, I mean, it's a smaller off season and how they're trying to get things going in December. Do you see this being like one of the crazier off seasons we've seen?
Yeah, it's going to be wild. I don't know. There's not necessarily as big names this offseason, but it's going to be so weird having it happen when hockey is normally being played at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
And, man, like, it's going to be totally different. I actually spoke with my brother about this. If the NHL's going to go into a bubble with a shortened season, I know you'll probably have a lot of players who want to sign a long-term contract. But the Jets, for example, Winnipeg, tougher city to get players to come to, right? But the Jets have a good roster, and we're not that far away from being a legit Stanley Cup contender. What if some free agents in the offseason said, listen, I'm gonna have to bubble the whole year. I just live in Toronto in a hotel anyways. Why don't I just go to a team that actually has a lot of talent on it rather than just thinking about where you're going to be living? Go to Winnipeg. Join the Jets. Why not? Just for a year. See what you can do in the bubble in this weird season. The Jets are one of those teams, I think, that if they get a couple more pieces in a bubble situation, they could go all the way. They have good goaltender, get a couple defensive players. They've got to, round out the roster. We've got a great top six. Why not? Just get on the squad. It's going to be such a weird offseason.
Yeah. No, it's a good point. And that's why I think it's going to be – some players are going to have a different mindset. Some players are going to be like, hey, I'm going to this bubble. I want to be heavily compensated here. But some players are going to have the understanding, and what you're implying is like, yeah, like you're going to have to maybe just take a year. And then after hopefully all this COVID goes away, then you sign your long-term deal. Obviously, it's tough for some of these guys that are like, it's their one opportunity to get the big bucks. Like, what is Pietrangelo going to do? What is Taylor Hall going to do? What is Mike Hoffman going to do, right? Like some of these guys. But there's also those secondary guys that, I mean, I think – you'd probably love to have, I don't know, maybe an Evgeny Dadonov on that wing, or you'd love to have a defenseman like, I mean, well, whether it's Pietrangelo, but there's also some guys that, I mean, Tyson Barrie is one for me that one I don't know what he's going to get because he had such a bad year for what his standards are.
Here's the thing with the Jets and about Barrie, because I feel like I heard someone talking about Barrie and the Jets.
Yeah.
You have to look at a guy like Tyson Barrie and ask if he addresses a need for your team. The Jets have a few good offensive defensemen who are kind of like Barrie. We're kind of looking, I guess, for guys who can shut it down on the back end. I guess we have a bit of both now, but I mean, Pionk's a guy who can, he'll record a lot of points. It never hurts to have good offensive right-handed shooting defensemen, but if you look at a team like the Leafs, they didn't really need a guy like Tyson Barrie. They're an offensive team who just added more offense when they needed more defense. Another guy like Jake Muzzin. So, yeah, I mean, I think the Jets would take Barrie for sure. I think Barrie would actually do very well in Winnipeg, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Jets made a run at him, especially since we played against Colorado so often. We know what Barrie's about. Maybe he just wasn't in the right situation in Toronto. But the Jets need a really solid, shutdown D who's just going to get it done, log a lot of minutes in, and play smart. Because we're not huge on the back end. Like, our best defensemen are not big guys. Pionk is not really a big guy. Morrissey's not really a big guy. That's why we just missed. We lost some big guys in last offseason.
Pretty huge guys.
Huge. Bufflin, Sherratt, these monsters. Myers,
I mean, even, so technically 4 guys because Trouba's even can hold.
Trouba too. Yeah, Trouba too. Although I do think that Winnipeg won that trade.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Man, I feel like I was like, a lot of people thought, oh, Pionk, like, what is this guy? And I said, man, wait till he comes to Winnipeg. He's done well. He's done well in Winnipeg.
Well, man, If Jacob Trouba is getting paid $8 million a year, you better believe Pionk should be getting paid just as much, if not more. And the Jets got him on a great contract. And when that thing's up, Neil Pionk is going to get paid a lot of money because he was far better than Trouba this year.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to think. The first round pick they got from the Rangers, was that? It wasn't Hinola, was it? Who was it?
Yeah, it was.
It was Hinola. Okay.
And we got Pionk.
That's a W.
Crazy. Crazy. Yeah, so that's another guy who's going to be coming up with it in the Jet system next year.
Yeah.
So the Jets back end could be looking a lot better. But and then there's a guy like Sami Niku. Who knows what's going to happen with Sami Niku?
Yeah.
To get it all together, or at least our organization it doesn't trust him quite yet. But he does have some very sick flow. So I'd love to see that stuff on the ice.
So do you look at the Jets defense going forward? Morrissey is probably going forward their number one guy in the long run, but is he good enough to be a number one, or do you see them just being more of that, like you were kind of saying, guys coming up, more of that just complete top six? I mean, we've seen that be implemented a lot more throughout the league. I'm looking at a team like the Islanders right now that are shutting down these great teams, and I can't really say I look at their defense and they have this one superstar defenseman.
That's coaching too. I mean,
100% coaching.
Props to Barry Trotz. That guy's got to be one of the best, if not the best, coaches in the league. I think Tortorella is right there with him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Josh Morrissey is a really solid player. I think Josh Morrissey is probably a really good number two.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's tough to really look at. And maybe I'm wrong for saying this, but it's tough to really trust. I don't know. There are few number 1D who are that size in the league. But I think Josh Morrissey is a really good player. I think he's going to be with the Jets for a long time. Obviously, he signed a contract not too long ago. And he's very smart. And he thinks the game well, and that's important. And I think he does just all the little things he does right. He doesn't make many mistakes. So, yeah, he's a number one, number two guy. I think he could be. I think he's a top pairing guy.
If you could look at one player that you think is just absolutely broken out and just been great and going to be great going forward as a young player, is there one player you see in the playoffs right now that's been that?
Elias Peterson.
Peterson.
Sure.
Do you think Peterson, number 5, top 5 center, top 10 center in the league going forward?
100%, probably a top 3. This guy's going to dominate the league for years.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at him right now and just how he's led this core, man. We're talking about it's 3 or 4 more years till he's probably at his very best.
Oh yeah, dude. You know who's also so underrated and just doesn't get enough love? He's not necessarily that young, but Riley Smith. Oh, that guy's been awesome. And you know who else is unreal? Alex Tuck. That guy doesn't get enough love.
He's a playoff performer. 2018.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, while, they lost to the Caps, Tuck was on a tear that run for the Knights.
For sure. He didn't have the best regular season, but, I mean, this guy can move. Yeah. He didn't play the whole regular season, but this guy can move. He's big, and I think he's a guy who – I think you win with guys like that in your roster when they're not necessarily your best player, but they're kind of your second tier guys. I think Tuck is. I'd love to have a guy like him on the Jets, but
yeah. Yeah. Well, this is connected, pretty random, but connected. Is the Golden Knights getting Riley Smith and Marceau one of the biggest fleece jobs you've ever seen out of the expansion draft?
100%, and it's just my little brother gets a little angrier about it than I do, but. Man, you know how frustrating it is to see the Jets build this team 2018. We've waited so long, probably inherited one of the most garbage rosters you could imagine from Atlanta. Just horrible. There were a lot of frustrating years in Winnipeg where it's are we going to make a run? Are we going to make the playoffs? We're not having much success. We finally built a good team, and who ruins the plan? Vegas in their first season?
Yeah.
What a joke. They got to change that format up because they got way too many good players. So I think a lot of teams learned from the first time around. Seattle's going to have it a bit tougher when they do it, but Yeah, I mean, how do you get a guy like Smith and Marcia? So they just both turn into your best players instantly. Shea Theodore, what?
Yeah.
One of the best defensemen in the league? Oh,
Oh
brutal.
yeah. I mean, that guy. I don't understand. Some of these defensive man. I mean, Theodore's one that I just he's a top 20 defenseman. He doesn't get recognized enough.
Dude,
Um,
I think he's better than that. He might be a top 10 defenseman. Like Shea Theodore
yeah.
was unreal this year. He's gonna be on Team Canada next year for sure.
Yeah. I mean, he's really good. I guess connecting to the expansion draft and stuff, and like I actually had a chat with Dave Poulin last year. He made a lot of good points about it. It's like you look at Vegas and how many teams got so nervous that they actually offered up like incentives to not touch players and go for other players, and that backfired on like half the league or at least like a dozen teams.
Isn't that what Florida did? They were like, take Smith and Marcia so you don't take Petrovic.
Like they were protecting. It happened with Florida. It happened with Minnesota. It happened with Tampa.
Yeah.
It happened with like Anaheim. Anaheim to take Theodore so that they wouldn't touch the other defenseman. How weird is that? Like they literally gave Theodore up, and Theodore would currently be by far the best defenseman on Anaheim right now.
100%. Vegas was playing chess while everyone else was playing checkers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Dave Poulin made a great point, and he was just kind of talking about like you would have to imagine teams are going to learn their lesson here with Seattle. And like if Seattle can come in and be a great team, like it's going to be much more of a surprise, more because they're not going to have like teams are going to learn their lesson. But at the same time, I think, a team like Minnesota, if they don't do the same thing again, I mean, again, they were giving incentive not to touch the top four, Suter, Spurgeon, Dumba, and Brodin.
Yeah.
They ended up losing Halla, who obviously whatever, but he had a great year with Vegas. And then Tuck's been insane.
Yeah.
What is your mindset? Like Seattle, like what was your thought process when Seattle came in, the presentation, the jerseys, logo, and then do you have a mindset on how good that team could be right off the bat? And do you think it's going to be different this time around?
Man, I loved it. I think that their jerseys are great. I like their logo. I'm a fan. I think it's going to look great on the players. I think Seattle's got it's a great sports city. The Seahawks are obviously a fun team. The Sounders too are, they have great fans, and
Yeah.
the Mariners, although the Mariners haven't really won much. I think teams are going to learn their lesson from Vegas, so they're going to be in a bit of a different situation. Teams are going to know not to just trade all these people so one player doesn't get taken and things like that. But yeah, I think it won't take that long for Seattle to become a good franchise. They're going to get a lot of draft picks, which will be nice, and it shouldn't be too long. They'll be able to get some pieces. It shouldn't be too long before they're, competing for a playoff spot.
I'm really happy that they're going to have a solid 32 team league. Like it's going to be like I don't see them touching it for a while. Like I think it's going to stay like that for a while. Obviously not too much is changing. Obviously Arizona's sliding over to give Seattle that spot in the Pacific. Just to wrap it up, man, thank you for coming on.
Dude, sorry it took so long. It took way too long.
No worries, man. It was a good time. As you said, man, it's hockey. I think obviously it's super underrated throughout the world and throughout North America, especially the US. But man, it's my sport. It's the number one sport in the world, in my opinion. But anything else? Any messages out there? Anything? Any hot takes? Jesse Pollock is looking good with these days, or?
Yeah, if you don't like the Jets, you're a cheap coward and you're a squid. And get on the Jets bandwagon, baby, because we're coming for that cup next year, baby.
There you go. All right, guys. As usual, go check out what Jesse does, man. He does some amazing stuff on Bar Down, and hey, I know most of you guys know him, but real funny guy. I've enjoyed the chat here, and I want to give a shout out to Chris Brieda, obviously a legend.
Legend Chris Brieda.
Yeah, absolute legend. And then Jesse, just thanks again, man, and all the best.
You're doing good stuff, John. Keep up the good stuff, man.
Thank you, and I hope we can chat soon. But yeah, guys, as usual, subscribe, drop a like, do all that good stuff. And from Jesse and myself, we're out. Peace.